Yesterday, Republican Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, knowing that he was going to get absolutely clobbered in the Arizona primary and would not get reelected, gives his sniveling, groveling, woe is me, I love my grandchildren speech, saying that resentment is not a governing philosophy and that times are odd for true conservatives in U.S. politics. This is Jeff Flake's definition of a conservative, is how much money can you shake down from the chamber, donor, slave trade network, gangster class, sipping champagne, eating caviar, and charging you $10,000 for a bowl of Wheaties at a breakfast to gain access. That's his world. It's not mine. Let's go to Jeff Flake. Good riddance.
Well, I'm not leaving the Senate. I'm just not running again. So I'll be here for another 15 or 14 months. So there was no need to do it before. This was the time.
The White House just described the remarks that you made on the Senate floor today as petty.
I would invite anybody to read the remarks or watch the speech and come to their own conclusion.
If he's as egregious as you say he is, why have only two of you spoken out?
I think more people have spoken out than that. And I think you'll see more in the future. I'm a traditional Republican, limited government, economic freedom, free trade, pro-immigration. And that's a very narrow path right now in the Republican primary. These days it seems that unless you're on, every policy that the president has, then somehow you're not a conservative somehow, or it's just an odd time in politics. This spell or fever that we're in right now, that is more about your tone than your policies will abate and will change. And so I do think resentment is not a governing philosophy. At some point, you've got to actually have policies that work, not just rile up the base.
Yeah, well, Senator Flake, don't let the door hit you in the keister on the way out. And as far as I'm concerned, you can take a long walk off a short pier to your hat floats. I could care less. Hey, if you're that unhappy, why don't you get the hell out now? Why wait? Joining us now, Tom Garrett, Republican. He's a conservative. He's a Trump supporter, and he represents the 5th District of Virginia. That is the greater Lynchburg area and thereof. Congressman Tom Garrett, good to have you with us.
John, how are you?
Never better. Today's a day of great celebration.
So,
the swamp's draining itself.
I will say, go ahead.
The swamp is draining itself, Tom. It's a great day.
Well, I'll say that I've been very frustrated with some of the messaging from the administration, okay? Having said that, to invoke the what will we tell our grandchildren line whilst quitting, I guess he'll tell his grandchildren that in a time that he perceived a great challenge, that in a time that he felt the country was at a turning point, that in a time when he was one of 100 members of the Senate, during a great challenge, at a turning point, he quit. That's a head scratcher. It's funny because we're accustomed to presidents serving a term or two and leaving and being quiet for a while. And these folks can't even announce they're retiring without going into hysterical sort of fits. So, I've been frustrated with some of the messaging from the administration. I would love to have the president's ear and say, sir, how about this instead of that? But if it's as bad as Jeff Flake says it is and his answer is to quit, I don't think we need him in leadership anyhow.
Well, the reason he quit and the reason Bob Corker quit is because they could not get reelected and survive a Republican primary in their states. This is the only reason, Tom Garrett, they're gone, in my view. Now, there was a flyer that came out yesterday. You represent a lot of this area, the Charlottesville fiasco with these fringe groups and that person who died. So I couldn't believe this. So after whining and crying and sniveling about Ed Gillespie's ads on TV, about MS-13 gangs and statues, right? All the Democrats did was whine. They put a flyer out yesterday with a picture of Ed Gillespie, President Trump, and then on the bottom of the picture, superimposed the whack jobs with the tiki torches that night, and they say, stand up to hate. Now, don't you find that to be a little duplicitous?
Well, maybe, except it's only a preview of what we get to look forward to next fall. I mean, these people are so darn predictable. Yeah, Barbara Johns, one of the greatest civil rights heroes in America that no one's ever heard of, has a holiday in Virginia because of me. But apparently because I got a picture taken with a whack job who showed up at my office, I'm somehow, antithetical to the cause of equality. My wife and I were married by an African-American pastor, but somehow, apparently because I'm in the same party as the president. This stuff, I think that you got a little bit of the little boy who cried wolf as it relates to the Democrat playbook. I, for one, believe that the Virginia voter is a little bit more discerning than the Democrats give them credit for. Ask me if I'm surprised, I'll tell you no.
Can Ed Gillespie win this race?
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny because there are certain things I don't want to say out loud, but I'll say what I didn't want to say 3 weeks ago, and that is 3 weeks ago I didn't think that we were going to win. Following the Monmouth poll and looking at how polls have predicted statewide Republican performance dating back 3 statewide races, in other words, we've been represented in the polls at the presidential, in the Cuccinelli-McAuliffe race, and in the first Gillespie for Senate race against Warner. The Republican has performed 4 or 5 points better in every one of those. So there's a whole lot of sort of noise coming from the other side. I don't know if that noise is going to translate into passion. And after the Monmouth poll, I think this thing is wide open. I would encourage anybody who's not sure whether their vote's going to count to get out and cast that ballot, because I think, folks, that we're going to have a nail-biter in, 13 days?
Yeah, 2 weeks away. It is going to be very, very close. Tom, let's get to Congress now, the House of Representatives. Well, we've got a couple of investigations going on. One, we're looking at the Clinton campaign paying the firm that manufactured the infamous Trump dossier. Now, all of a sudden, that's come into play. Then we've got this whole undercover agent who turned state's evidence, who wore a wire on the Clinton agreeing to the 20% sale of uranium to the Russian company. Shortly after that, Bill Clinton getting $500,000 in speeches, $2 million going to the Clinton Foundation from people tied to that. Is there anything here?
I've been saying that there was a there for 2 years plus. I feel like John McClane after he's pushed the computer monitor on the chair out the window of the Nakatomi Towers. Welcome to the party, pal. I like the pop culture allusions. It's ironic to me that we can't trust Trump because, now let's fill in the blank, the Russians is the angle that they've taken. I will tell you this, there was an article in a Washington rag, I think 2 weeks ago, where they interviewed Democrat senators in swing states who were up for election, who all said, oh, the Russians, we're worried about the Russians. If these people spend as much time working as they did making excuses for why they didn't or aren't going to win, they might win more elections.
I think you're spot on with that. I look forward to this investigation. I just think when you look at the uranium deal and you look at the fact that Bill Clinton immediately got $500,000 in speaking fees from entities, from the Russian government, from the banks tied to that, and then you look at the fact that we had an undercover agent wearing a wire and Mueller suppressed that never came out. I think there's a lot of questions here that have to be answered. Unfortunately, Congressman, we can't do that today because we're short on time. Sorry for the brevity of our time together.
Well, that's
today.
On me, and I was on another call that I could not avoid, and I look forward to the day when I can share the information that I was able to receive on that call. Good things are happening.
Good things are happening? All right. Well, we look forward to you sharing that. And also, the 76,000 pages of the tax code that favors the swamp-only elites who can navigate their way around it. We're looking forward to talking to you about that later on this week as well. Tom Garrett, thanks for being with us. We're out of time. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth across America.